Welcome to this explainer. Okay, so we're setting up a classic man versus nature theme today, but instead of the wilderness, we're looking right above our heads. We're diving into the grueling, everyday reality of home defense in the Mango and Tampa area of Florida. When you own property down here, your roof isn't just sitting there looking pretty. Oh no. It is actively engaged in this epic, ongoing battle against literally one of the most intense climates in North America.
Okay, let's dive right into this. We're starting with the ultimate, high-stakes question about what is probably your biggest financial investment. If you live in Florida, you've definitely noticed that your roof just simply doesn't last as long as the ones you see up north. It's just a fact of life down here. But why exactly does this happen? What is it about this specific environment that acts like a fast-forward button for wear and tear?
To figure that out, let's look at Section 1, Florida's unique roofing challenges, the relentless antagonist. We really need to introduce the true villain of our story, which is the brutal, uncompromising climate of the Mango and Hillsborough County corridor. Because this isn't just bad weather, right? It's a continuous, multi-front assault. Look at the specific environmental weapons Florida is throwing at a home. First off, you've got this brutal, direct UV radiation just baking the materials day in and day out. Then, cue the near-daily summer thunderstorms that bring these sudden, drastic temperature drops and crazy wind-driven rain. Add in a baseline humidity that consistently sits above 70% year-round, and then top the whole shebang off with Gulf moisture systems pushing straight inland across Hillsborough County. It's literally the perfect storm for accelerated roof deterioration. And this brilliantly illustrates the real-world consequence of that climate. It's pretty stark. An asphalt shingle roof that you could comfortably expect to last, say, 25 years in a milder climate like Georgia. Yeah, that same roof will typically fail in just 15 years down in the Mango and Tampa area. That is an entire decade of life just shaved off, simply because of your zip code. It's a massive reality check for anyone budgeting for home maintenance. So how exactly does this climate actually tear these materials apart? Well, welcome to Section 2, How Weather Destroys Roofs, Anatomy of Destruction. Let's look at the specific casualties of this climate war happening right on top of your house. The crazy thing is, the breakdown happens in incredibly predictable patterns. First, because of all that constant moisture, dark algae colonies absolutely thrive on the north-facing slopes. They're up there actively feeding on the limestone filler and asphalt shingles, which just traps even more wetness. Meanwhile, that intense UV exposure we talked about, it's causing rapid granule loss. Next comes the constant expansion and contraction from extreme temperature swings, which aggressively weakens the adhesive bonds holding everything together. And finally, the knockout blow. When tropical systems or strong afternoon storms roll through, the relentless wind uplift tears at those already weakened edges and ridge caps, completely exposing the vulnerable underbelly of your roof. And then there is this absolutely staggering number. 140 degrees. Let that sink in. That is the temperature an unventilated summer attic can easily reach in Florida. Just imagine that intense, stifling heat trapped right under your roof.
Connecting directly to that 140-degree nightmare, we see that trapped heat and condensation literally cook your roof from the inside out. When you don't have proper ventilation balancing the intake and exhaust, condensation actually forms right on the underside of the decking, and that leads straight to wood rot and rapid underlayment failure. Basically, your shingles are getting baked by the sun on the top and slow cooked from the attic on the bottom. So, proper ventilation? It isn't just a nice-to-have upgrade, it is an absolutely crucial, essential defense mechanism.
Okay, but it's not all doom and gloom, I promise. Let's shift the narrative over to the solution side in Section 3, the Hurricane Building Code, the ultimate defense system. This is where we get to see the real engineering marvels designed to help your home fight back. You see, Hillsborough County falls under a specific, highly critical designation known as a high-velocity hurricane zone. This is a rigorous building code standard mandated for extreme wind exposure areas. Now, if you remember the devastating impact of Hurricane Andrew back in 1992, well, that disaster actually forced massive updates to the Florida Building Code in 2001. Those updates forever changed the baseline of how roofs are built down here, ensuring they have the highly durable attachment patterns and underlayment ratings that are fundamentally required to survive. So the crucial point here is how these numbers dramatically alter your home's armor. Take a second to look at this comparison. Standard practice outside of Florida might use just 4 nails per shingle, but the Florida code, it demands 6 nails per shingle in highly specific patterns. Or take decking.
Older homes might have roof decking attached with simple staples or really widely spaced nails, but the modern code requires 8D nails spaced exactly 6 inches apart on the edges. And instead of just throwing in some basic venting, the law mandates at least 1 square foot of ventilation for every 150 square feet of attic space. Guys, these aren't just suggestions. They are rigorous legal standards designed to keep your roof actually attached to your house during a hurricane. Of course, even the absolute best defenses occasionally take a hit. And that brings us to Section 4, repair, restore, or replace, the rescue mission. When the weather inevitably wins a battle, property owners generally have 3 distinct strategic responses. Depending on the severity of the damage, interventions actually fall pretty evenly into one of 3 buckets, as you can see here: emergency repairs, system restoration, or complete replacement. Different levels of destruction obviously require completely different approaches, ranging from just throwing up a same-day tarp all the way to tearing off the entire structure right down to the bare wooden deck. Let's break those specific strategies down. An emergency approach is all about stopping immediate water intrusion, right? You get a crew out there within hours to tarp the damage so a tiny leak doesn't completely ruin the interior of your home. A restoration approach happens when the roof actually still has some useful life left in it. Professionals will come in and replace damaged decking and bad flashing at the valleys while preserving the healthy sections to save you some money. But what if the repair is no longer cost-effective or the materials have just simply aged out? Well, then you're looking at a complete replacement. That's a total tear-off down to the decking to install brand new code-compliant materials for long-term value. So, once you know the strategy, how does the execution actually work? Let's move to Section 5, the professional roofing process, the blueprint for protection, and see exactly how professionals in Tampa implement these defenses. Let's move to this and see how this builds into a surprisingly straightforward 3-step journey. Step 1 is the inspection and estimate. Good professionals don't just eyeball it. They're using photos and thermal imaging to document the damage for insurance, usually getting you an accurate estimate within 24 hours. Step 2 is material delivery and installation. For most residential homes, this takes just 1 to 3 days, maintaining strict code compliance the whole time. And Step 3 is the final inspection and warranty, where a third party actually comes out and verifies that the work genuinely meets those crucial high-velocity hurricane zone standards. Now, with all this intense labor and highly specific code compliance we've been talking about, you are probably sitting there asking the biggest practical question of all: how much is this roofing labor actually going to cost you per hour? Well, in the Mango area, roofing labor typically runs somewhere between $40 to $80 an hour. That obviously depends heavily on the complexity of your specific project and the experience level of the crew. But keep in mind, this rate can definitely spike during hurricane season or those peak summer months when demand absolutely skyrockets. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the economic reality for the professionals doing the hard work. Because the climate demands are so intense, and because navigating these complex, code-compliant installations and insurance claims is highly specialized work, experienced roofers in Mango can actually earn well over $100,000 a year. It is a premium skill in a market that desperately needs it. When it is time to invest, you really have to weigh your material options carefully. On one side, you have your standard 3-tab asphalt shingles. Yeah, they're cheaper upfront, but they offer lower wind resistance and will be totally at the end of their life in just 15 to 20 years. On the other hand, you have architectural shingles or metal roofing. Yes, they carry a higher initial cost, for sure, but they provide far superior hurricane protection and can literally last decades longer. Honestly, in a climate that actively tries to destroy inferior materials, choosing the absolute cheapest option is a massive, massive gamble. Which brings us to our final high-stakes question to leave you with today. Was your roof installed before the 2001 Florida Building Code updates? Because if it was, you might be missing the critical nail patterns, deck attachments, and underlayment protections fundamentally required to survive the next major storm. It's a provocative thought, but a truly necessary one, to ensure your home is actually armored for the reality of Florida's climate. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and stay safe out there.